This session will explore how we can ensure that artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into mental health and remains grounded in human needs and promotes equity. I'm pleased to introduce this session's panel chair, Dr. Killian Pohl, who will guide us through the session and introduce the panel's speakers. Dr. Pohl is a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences and by courtesy electrical engineering here at Stanford, and is the founder of the Computational Neuroscience Laboratory. He's also co-director of the AI for Mental Health Initiative of the Department of Psychiatry here at Stanford, and he's been working in this domain for nearly 25 years. Dr. Pohl's research is grounded in computational science using machine learning to identify biomedical phenotypes from high-dimensional neuroimaging, cognitive, and behavioral data. Dr. Pohl is a leader in computational neuroimaging and in developing advanced methods to better understand brain structure and function in mental health. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pohl.
Thank you so much for being able to host this exciting panel with three exciting speakers that have very complementary research backgrounds and give us their perspective on how to use AI for precision medicine and especially depression. The first speaker is Dr. Hernandez-Buzar, the Associate Dean of Research in the School of Medicine and Professor of Medicine in Biomedical Medicine, the Biomedical Data Science in Surgery, and by courtesy of Epidemiology, Population Health Sciences. What you might not know about Dr. She's already laughing, Hernandez-Buzar, is that she is a retired barrel racer and calf rider. Beyond that, her work centers on creating rigorous criteria and guidelines for developing responsible AI. Furthermore, Dr. Hernandez-Buzar strongly advocates for ensuring that the benefits of digital health technologies are accessible to all segments of society. Today, she will speak on advancing AI research, education, policy, and practice to service the collective needs of humanity. Dr. Hernandez-Buzar, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. Thank you, Leanne, for this amazing gathering of our community. And I think it's just so wonderful to bring all of these diverse research opinions and ideas together. So today, this afternoon, I guess we are, I want to talk about kind of bringing in a lot of the things we've heard this morning to think about how do we think about the future of mental health in this explosion of AI, right? There's a lot of hype about what AI can do for mental health. And we've seen it across the cognitive work we saw this morning. We've seen a lot of this behavioral work, cognitive therapy. So where does that bring us? And how do we think about using AI effectively and safely in mental health? So there's a lot of promise, right, about what AI can do. And there's a lot of, recently we've seen a lot of like mental health chatbots coming online and coming out and being available to our community. You know, it's great because one, they offer 24/7 support, right? They are available all the time. 3 o'clock in the morning, I need to talk to someone. Hey, there's an AI chatbot available. It's lower stigma. I don't have to be embarrassed. I'm talking to an AI bot. So it lowers the stigma of how we can talk to these people. And also accessibility, right? I can be in, so I grew up, I did grow up barrel racing in Central California, which is a very remote area. Closest, town is probably 4 or 5 hours away. So accessibility is huge with these AI chatbots, right? But there's also a fundamental lack of oversight on these tools, right? So these tools are being scaled out to our community, to patients, to patient-facing apps, but there's really no oversight on what these tools do, how they do it, and how they were developed, right? And so this is because they're working in a regulatory vacuum. And what do I mean by that? So most tools need to go through the FDA clearance if they are informing care, if they are driving care decisions, or if they're actually developing a treatment or a diagnosis for a patient. So anything under that toolbox needs to have an FDA approval or some type of regulation. But these AI chatbots, they are coming under the avenue of their wellness apps, right? So they're not doing anything with medical care, they're helping you with wellness. Right. So what are they doing? They're helping you with lifestyle choices. They're helping to promote and track your choices. And so they're making some general claims, but they're claiming it's not medical. So therefore, they start without this regulation, but then slowly but surely, we're seeing them inch into the medical space. And why is that? Well, because, our healthcare medical system is a multi-billion-dollar entity, right? So of course they want to move into that space. But again, there's no regulations on these AI chatbots. And so that means that we see some of these horrific stories that have been coming out in the news, where we have teenagers who have been talking with these AI chatbots. And some of these cases, this is just one, devastating, where, the AI chatbot might have given them some information on how they might attempt suicide. What are some avenues they might think about? So this is devastating, right? And I think that this is a community that we really need to think about. How do we think about the boundaries of AI? And how do we think about really safely deploying these tools, leveraging the hype and the super potential of AI, but yet doing that in a way that is very safe and effective for our healthcare system? And so I think that we need to think together about some better ways to harness AI for mental health. And we've seen some excellent examples this morning, again, about some cognitive information, how we're using AI to look at brain imaging. How do we pull that together and merge that with things like these AI chatbots? Anybody thought about that? Well, we've been thinking about the patient digital twin and what that can mean for mental health. So what is a digital twin? We've heard it probably in very different scenarios. We've seen it in engineering, in the aviation industry. We're even seeing city digital twins. So what is it? It is a virtual replica of a system. That system can be a city, it could be an airplane, or it could be a person. And so what's unique about a digital twin is that it really breaks down the silos that we have in healthcare. That means it incorporates multi-scale, multimodal data across a diverse time frame. So we take the cognitive data, we take the behavioral data, we take the environmental data, we take social determinants of health, and we try to normalize all that data. So instead of having 5 separate models, we bring them all together in one model that is very precise for you as an individual. And then we integrate that to we say, how will you personally react to treatment A versus treatment B? How do we integrate this into point of care so that your clinician, your therapist, really has the dynamics of your personal biology coupled with your environment, your accessibility issues, et cetera? And so again, this is about multimodal information. It's about capturing patient history, patient characteristics, genomics, social determinants of health, and mechanistic models. And so this is something I want to just pause on just for a minute, because we've heard a lot about these mechanistic research endeavors that have been going on in mental health. And then we hear about our data-driven models. How do we merge those together? And I think this is sort of the sweet spot of the digital twin. And it's not just clinical history, right? It's really biology. And so let me give you a clear example. We do a lot of work in pain management and how we think about identifying optimal treatment for pain management. Did you know that if you are taking an antidepressant, you are less likely to respond to about 90% of opioids? Because antidepressants block a liver enzyme that is necessary to activate opioids that need to be metabolized. And so if we don't take these two pieces of information together, that means that the patient's not going to be respondent to the pain management cases. That means they're going to need more opioids. They're going to need more pain management because we're not giving the right treatment for that patient. That means they have higher risks of having misuse, of becoming prolonged users. And so it's a very simple piece of information. It's just they're held separately in separate domains. So we think about how do we pull this together? So another piece that we're incorporating into these models are really thinking about uncharted data evidence. And so it's hard to say uncharted at Stanford because the speaker before me just talked about using voice data, okay? So I'm going to still call it novel because there's not a lot of models that use it, but we're capturing voice data everywhere. We have ambient AI that's picking up and recording voices. And so there's now new research that shows if we incorporate this into our data-driven models, we can detect early signs, early differences in patient pitch, in speech patterns, in different aspects of speech. And using AI, we can pull these together and then match that with your smartwatch, your physical activity. Well, your pitch is going down and I see your activity is going down. And wait a minute, you're taking this type of medication. And so we can start pulling that all together. And what does that mean? That means we have the power of forecasting how you might respond to treatment A versus treatment B. So let me give you a clear example of that. This is Maya. Okay, Maya is a teacher. She suffers from mild depression. And so she went to her doctor to get, some treatment for her depression. So they initially started her on an antidepressant, an SSRI. And so with that, she had some sleep improvement, but minimal mood changes. So then she switched to a different antidepressant, right? And so she got rapid energy gain, but she had new anxiety and jitters. And so it didn't work when she was teaching. So then she went into cognitive therapy, right? Therapy number 3. And that helped her cope with negative feelings, but it didn't really get her to where she wanted to be. So finally, they started her on a low-dose antipsychotic and her suicide thoughts reduced. And this was a great treatment for Maya. But this was over 12, 13 months of time for her trying, trial and error of these different treatment patterns. So imagine if we can say that we can predict before she starts taking that therapy how she might respond to treatment, the antidepressants versus the antipsychotics. Imagine we could show, okay, well, here on antipsychotics, we see that you have a significant decrease in depression, but maybe not a big decrease in anxiety. Imagine we can say, look at on antipsychotic or on SSRIs, we see not a real significant change in both depression and anxiety. This is where we are when we start thinking about the possibility of the digital twin, really being able to forecast how somebody might react to a different treatment pattern so that they don't have to go through the 13, 15, 18 months of trial and error, which can mean life or death for a lot of these people, right? It's really important to understand how we reduce that trial and error period. However, and more importantly, I think this allows us to shift from reactive care to really proactive care, right? And how does this matter to the patient? Because it allows the individual patient to identify what's important to them. Is it the anxiety? Is it depression? Is it all these different aspects that these treatments treat differently? It allows them to compare the benefits and harms of different types of therapy before they start, before that 15-month trial period. It also allows us to identify potential risks so that we can be proactive before they happen. And it really integrates all of these different disciplines, psychology, behavior, environment, social determinants of health, into a single model to allow us to do this forecasting. But, and it's also important to say, this is not a virtual you that you're going to take along with you to the park, right? This is really a tool, a co-pilot to help clinicians, therapists, caregivers understand what is the best treatment pathway for you and what needs to be considered when you're taking these different options. And it's about building trust. right, which is fundamental in this field, right? It's fundamental to gain the trust of our end users that we actually are thinking about these different benefits and harms. But this can't be this can't work without governance and without some type of infrastructure, right? And so we've done a lot of work thinking about what does it mean to have a responsible AI in any field, in mental health, but in all other fields. What does that mean? And one thing I think that is really important that I've learned is it's not about the AI hype. It is not about how well your model performs. Yes, that is important, but it also depends on how did you develop your model? Who was your model trained on? So who is it applicable to, but also who is it not applicable to, right? That's really important to understand where you can apply these models. How do we think about getting it into point of care? And where does it go? Does it go to the clinician? Does it go to the nurse? Does it go to a patient-facing app? So all of these pieces are really important when we think about governance. And so we've been working for tools that are actually deployed in the healthcare system. We've been working with a team between Stanford and Harvard, thinking about this framework for deploying that's really, number one, focused on safety. How do we ensure the models are safe before we even bring them to point of care? How do we think about their effectiveness? You know, what do we see when we start deploying them in a few clinics? How do they work? How well are they changing either treatment or outcomes or something? What's their efficacy, right? How do they work? We roll out to to larger communities. And then more important, how do we think, once that model is deployed, how do we think about monitoring and surveillance of the tool? How do we ensure that population changes aren't changing what happens to the outcomes or the predictions of these models? And so I want to bring the attention to an FDA convening advisory committee. And so this is really important because this is the first advisory committee that the FDA has had in a long time this year. And it is going to be focused on generative AI and mental health devices. And so I'm excited that I've been tapped on the shoulder to help this conversation and to help think about what are the guardrails we need to put in place that do not stifle innovation. So we still want the innovation, but they have guardrails. And so we're coming up with some sort of chatbot core minimum requirements regarding, you know, intended use and risk identification, crisis safety, age gating. We've talked about age gating previously. Transparency. Who was the model trained on? We did a survey of the 19 publicly facing chatbots, and some of them were trained on like less than 200 people, or safeguarded on less than 200 people. It's crazy. And so this is a list of requirements we're putting forward to the FDA for their committee meeting. And I just want to say that it's all about transparency and explainability when it comes to AI in health. We need to understand how the tool works and who it works on. We need community co-design. We need to enforce insight, right? Ensuring these safeguards in place. And it's really about interdisciplinary stewardship. So thank you so much. I hope I gave you a nice overview of, you know, what the future might hold. And I think we have a lot more discussion to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What an excellent presentation. The next speaker is Dr. Ehsan Adeli, who is an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral science, and by courtesy of biomedical data science and computer science. He is also serves as co-director of both the Stanford AI for Mental Health Initiative and the Stanford AI Consortium. He heads the Stanford Translational Artificial Intelligence Lab, which leverages AI to improve clinical care and deepen our understanding of aging and neurodegenerative disorders. For his work, he has received numerous awards. Besides his impressive accolades, Dr. Adeli has the unique ability to transform your any living room into a living research lab. He will talk about this ability in his exciting talk, Precision Mental Health Meets Transitional AI, Neural Mechanisms and Individualized Digital Biomarker Trajectories. Dr. Adeli, please.
Wow. Thank you so much, Lillian. And I just want to say it's actually very hard to talk after Tina and right before Jonathan, two superstars. So bear with me. All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about neural mechanisms and individuals' digital biomarkers and how my lab is using AI to create this connection and create and understand the neural mechanisms behind some of the neurological disorders. So with that, I want to start by saying that human actions are an integral part of our daily lives, from everyday activities like tying our shoes to playing musical instruments. Behind each action, there is a complex interplay between neural circuitry and how the actions are performed. The brain has to process information, plan, and coordinate the necessary responses. Beyond motor skills, the cognitive processes in the brain underlies our ability to perform intricate and complex activities. And some of these cognitive processes involve perception, attention, memory, learning, decision-making, problem-solving, and language. These cognitive processes help us interact with the world and be able to perform actions in a purposeful manner. We know that the brain operates as a network, and if any of the regions or circuits in the brain get impaired, the downstream impacts result in misfiring some of the connected networks and them losing their regulatory powers and so on. And all of this results in an array of psychiatric, behavioral, or motor symptoms. And my research is to first observe these symptoms through AI algorithms, try to quantify them, trace them back to the networks in the brain, and ultimately, again, use AI and imaging to predict and intervene. This motivated me and my lab to study motion and brain circuitry. On one hand, motion, where we use digital devices and also videos to quantify motion, and on the other hand, structural and functional MRIs. So with that quick-ish intro, let's look at some of the things that we've been doing on quantifying motion, mostly through contactless sensors, but there are some wearable devices as well. Starting with this is a clinical test, a time doubling go test, that we only recorded it on, it should be a video playing, on an iPad, and you can see the video, the iPad video on the left, and we can, using AI algorithms, reconstruct the entire movement, the motion, and then also the body joint movements. And on the right, you see a wide array of measurements that we can extract. This means that we can quantify the entire walking cycle, and not only that, also extract a few measurements that can ultimately result in or be part of a list of digital biomarkers that could be used for movement. It's not just walking. All types of clinical tests using our AI algorithms, 3D construction algorithms, we can quantify those movements. And this is an example of a short physical performance battery test, or SPB test, that is run to check individuals' balance and quite a few other skills, and that is recorded on a smartphone camera, again through algorithms, quantified fully and completely. Beyond computer vision and using these cameras of the smart sensors and so on, we have been using some variables, including this example that you can see in the screen. a smart glass where we can look at the world from the individual's point of view perspective. And that also gives us access to quite a few other sensors. And you can see that the green trail is the walking space, the walking trajectory of the individual recorded by the glass itself. And again, using our AI algorithms, we have been able to fully and completely reconstruct the entire body's motion and movement only and only based on what we see on the glasses. And it's not just accurate reconstruction, it's also been able to quantify and detect some of the abnormal walking patterns, again, through some of the machine learning and AI algorithms that we've been developing. This was, we just recently tested this against motion capture, and we've been able to see very accurate, minimal errors when it comes to ground truth single standard motion capture. So that was how, in a nutshell, the story of how we quantify movements, the entire body movements. And then on the use of structural and functional MRIs for quantifying brain and networks, I don't probably need to talk much about it for this group. We've been using standard algorithms to turn the functional MRI images and structural images into brain networks, and then use some new graph neural networks and deep learning frameworks to predict some of the clinical scores that we've been gathering with together with those videos. So with this, we've been able to create encoders of brain, computational data-driven encoders of brain networks. And that led to, so as I said, motion was quantified by these skeletons and movements, and brain circuitry was quantified by the functional MRIs and analysis that I just showed you. But we are interested in neural mechanisms of the motion impairments, right? So in order to create that connection, we've been doing some exploration. One of those was through canonical correlation analysis, which resulted in this paper published last year in Nature Machine Intelligence, where we summarized both of these modalities into vectors and then tried to create a common space, a correlated space between the two. And then when we tested this on individuals with Parkinson's disease who have abnormal movement patterns, we've been able to identify those correlated measurements between the two very diverse modalities, as you can see here, with a very strong correlation. And this resulted in us thinking of, okay, so let's look at what we learn from these algorithms and the neural mechanisms that we've been pursuing. Looking at the movements by observing velocity, movement of the joints, and rotation angles, and so on, we've been able to find these significant differences between the groups, and not only on that coordination between left and right side of the body. And then all of these impairments and patterns that we've been identifying, we also found the correlated neural mechanism, correlated functions, brain functions that relate with those. So this made us think that we are creating this proxy. So why not turn this into a mobile app that can track the digital markers, and those digital markers are proxies of brain impairments. And then, so this type of measurement is scalable, repeatable over time. You can track it over time for progression and recovery. And generally, it's an automatic extraction. Let's take gait speed as one example, and there's evidence around it that if it's tracked longitudinally and over time, it can be a very early indicator of cognitive decline and and accelerated brain aging. So with that in mind, I wanted to bring up another example that we've recently completed the study around, using same type of data of imaging, videos and audio data for accurate detection of depression and anxiety during pre-visit rooming stages of and use machine learning multimodal algorithms. In the pre-visit stage, we ask individuals to fill out those 3 questionnaires, PHQ-9, GAT-7, and the demographic survey. And then the individuals, participants, were engaged in a conversation with our clinical team, which they answered questions, they provided responses to 11 questions, and they were video recorded, audio recorded, and then the audio was transcribed. Using these 3 modalities of data, we've been developing multimodal algorithms to predict these anxiety and depression scores. First, using a simple traditional deep learning framework, we were able to not only do a good, relatively an accurate system for prediction of those scores for depression and anxiety, we've been also able to identify some markers, some gesture markers that highly correlate and contribute to those significant predictions. Beyond that, the first work was done using 5-fold cross-validation, full training, and so on. More recently, we tested large language models, and this time we didn't conduct any training, so all of the data was used for evaluation, almost all of the data, where we used chain of thought reasoning and in-context learning, and we've tested a few state-of-the-art LLMs, as you can see, GPT-4o, Gemini, the LLM from Google, and Llama, which showed promising performance in being able to quantify, to predict the clinical scores, the PHQ-9 and GAT-7 scores in terms of both binary classification and also predicting the significance, the progression, the level of severity of the disease. And the LLMs were also able to summarize and show us how there were differences in word usage between those who were positive with respect to anxiety and depression scores, using more filler words, and negatively valenced words more often. With that, I want to just summarize that it's not just those smart sensors or videos that could be used for assessing and extracting digital markers. A few of this ecosystem of digital area that this digital ecosystem could be actually something that can be used at home environments, as Kilian was saying, through wearable sensors, portable sensors, even inner body sensors, and mostly where my research and my interest is around ambient and contactless sensing technologies. With that, I would like to wrap up, say, we talked about this complex interplay between brain and human actions and behaviors, and data-driven approaches can actually facilitate understanding this complex interplay and may result in novel, multifaceted markers and biomarkers. Thank you so much, and thank these institutes for support.
So our last speaker, besides being an outstanding magician, Dr. Joanne Chen, he is an associate professor of medicine, biomedical informatics, and of biomedical data science at Stanford. His research brings together human and artificial intelligence to improve clinical care. His vision is to build a continuously learning health system that delivers the collective wisdom of healthcare back to both clinicians and patients. a vision grounded in his active practice as a physician, and for which he recently received the Young Physician Science Awards by the American Society for Clinical Investigators. Now, Dr. Chen.
That might be AI hallucination.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Chen will share his perspective for AI for detection and support of mental health needs. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Good to see everybody. I have no answers to anything. I'm just here to throw some grenades on the floor because ready or not, good or bad, Pandora's box has been opened. And it is very clear that many people now talk to AI chatbots more than to live human beings, for better and for worse. My wife clearly talks to ChatGPT more than she talks to me. And to be fair, I also talk to chatbots all the time about things that I've never talked to another live human being about. It gets to the point, what happens when you think about medical, maybe mental health implications? States are starting to ban the use of AI for mental health applications. Oh my gosh, that sounds really scary. I don't know that you should be doing that. And a lot of anxiety is founded. It's a very weird, bizarre world we're in. Then again, how do you feel about the half of people who really would benefit from therapy, but they do not have access due to cost and availability? There are people, for some topics, actually, they would rather talk to a computer than talk to a judgmental human. I have definitely had cases where the computer is more available and actually more useful than a lot of live therapists or human professionals I've spoken to. Is that really true? What? Can an AI actually do complex counseling and medical reasoning? No way. Well, here's some fun headlines for you. AI defeats doctors at diagnosis. I definitely would not have written that headline myself, but it triggered a lot of really angry people to read the article, so I guess it served its purpose. Talking about one of our studies last year, what do you do when emerging AI systems can handily pass law, business, medical exams? We've had educators, including at our own institution, say, oh my gosh, ban this technology. We can't let our students use it. After all, when you give somebody a medical degree, you want them to know medicine, not how to use a bot. Is that the case? What do you think? What do you think is the purpose of proper medical care? Broader point, we must think about not just where we are, but where we are going. This is a chart showing over time how well different language models, chatbot AI systems have done at answering medical questions. I had students working on this 6 years ago, 35% accuracy. It's unusable. I stopped paying attention to this technology for a few years. And then what happened? ChatGPT blows up, the fastest growing internet application in history. The first version, 60% accuracy. It's kind of barely passing even a complex medical exam. Whoa, that's crazy. Well, some of my colleagues say, yeah, if you want a doctor who barely passed medical school, you can talk to this thing. It's not smarter than me. And I thought, boy, is that the wrong way to think about this. A few years ago, this technology was unusable. So this is kind of borderline passing now. It is really not that hard to project where we are going in the not distant future. And indeed, a matter of months later, MedPalm 2, GPT-4 emerge, handily passing these exams, outscoring your average and also your above average doctors. And I haven't updated this slide in over a year because now every frontier model is 90+% accurate. Open Evidence just did a press release. They're 100% accurate on this test. Come on. Bunch of multiple choice questions, okay? Nobody's job is to answer multiple choice questions all day. So we have done open-ended diagnostic reasoning, complex vignettes, give your differential, justify your reasoning. It's very complex expert consensus rubric. I'm going to blast through some of these studies just to kind of get to the next phase. We did this for diagnostic case randomized control trial, real doctors, and some of them you can use the regular internet, PubMed, UpToDate, Google, and they do pretty good. That's their score distribution. Doctor plus internet is actually very hard to beat on a knowledge exam. That's been the case for decades. We gave the other half, we randomized them, they can use GPT-4 and found, actually didn't make that much difference. That is weird. That is totally not what we expected, because if you actually ask GPT-4 by itself, it actually outscores all of the doctors, including the doctors who have access to GPT-4. Like, what is going on here? It's really flies in the face of the fundamental theorem of informatics. Human plus computer, when combined, will deliver better results than either would alone. Doesn't that sound so good? I used to say that as the final line of my talk for years. I don't say that anymore because I'm kind of unsure right now. That human in the loop in the middle kind of seems like it's just getting in the way. Maybe get out of the way, just let the robot take over already. Oh, and by the way, for those who are paying attention, ooh, we got some mood lighting. GPT-4, was like 2 years ago. This is ancient technology. We have multiple phases. Peer review takes too long to catch up. We've done multiple studies since then, and just peer review takes forever. This would be O1 preview, one of the reasoning models. A chatbot that sort of talks to itself in a chain of thought before it gets better. It kind of looks even better. It's actually getting to the point you can't even tell the difference because now all these things are converging on 100%, even on this complex exam. We can't even tell the difference. So we also did a complex management questions. You're going to find in medical practice, actually diagnosis is not that often what we struggle with. It's sometimes it is the case for rare diseases. Most of the times we know what the diagnosis is. The question is like, what do you do about it? Is someone with severe major depression, but also they live 100 miles from any psychologist available and can't afford their medication? What would you do about that? Diagnosis is not your problem there. Patient had a terrible side effect to their medication. Should you just keep on going and tolerate the side effect, or should you try a different combination? That's a complex dynamic. So we had a much more richer set of questions here. Doctor plus usual internet does okay, but by design, this is a very hard exam. Doctor plus GPT-4 does do better, Humans can use and be influenced by technology and tools. About the same as GPT-4 by itself. Hey, at least it didn't beat us this time. We still didn't do better though, so it still begs this very weird, uncomfortable question. What is the human doing here in this case? Oh, and by the way, that would be O1 preview, one of these reasoning models, even a complex management exam. I don't know. Where do we go from here? Okay, you know what? I had many people admit, okay, fine. AI knows a lot of stuff, very smart. You can't simulate the kind of empathy and personal connection I can offer my patients. Yeah, how about that? Well, you might have seen some of these studies in the prior couple of years. Patients ask questions online, doctors answer those, or they have a chatbot answer them, and find that the chatbot generated answers score higher in quality and in empathy. Like the robot is nicer to people than real human doctors are. Hey, to be fair, come on. I literally have 100 messages I have to respond to every day. I don't have time for some empathetic response. Oh, sorry, sir. So sorry to hear about your recurrent symptoms. That must be such a challenging situation. I want you to know our whole team is I don't have time to write this BS. I gotta be terse and to the point. Yes, you need to finish those antibiotics. No, you don't need an MRI scan. Schedule an appointment next month. Stop messaging me. Go to the emergency room. I mean, this is the reality of what you have to deal with. Now, obviously, I think it's actually something very special, unique, and powerful about the direct human-to-human connections we can make. However, what I believe studies like this show us is that we as humans do not have as much of a monopoly on empathy and personal connection as we might like to believe. And why I fully expect, for better and for worse, way more people are going to receive therapy, counseling, advice from automated bots than live human beings in the not distant future. It's already happening, right? Bans are already trying to come into place because it's coming so fast. And by the way, it's not because the robot's so good and humans are bad. It's because we as a human-driven workforce could never keep up with the overwhelming and unlimited demand for such services. People are going to have to reach for what they can get their hands on. I'll do a concrete example just to think through, like, really? It's kind of abstract. I encourage you to read this essay. It's just 2 pages long, an early experience I had with GPT-4. And it's very easy to trick a chatbot into saying something stupid, racist, misogynist. It's a sycophant. It wants to please you, wants to agree with whatever you say. So it's very easy to make it say something stupid. I gave it an ethical dilemma. There's no way it could handle this. I saw a real patient in the hospital, had to talk to the wife afterwards. Tough conversation. And so that night I went, hey, chatbot, could you pretend to be the doctor? And I'm going to pretend to be the patient's wife. Let's see how you would have handled this situation. So here I am, I'm pretending to be the patient's wife. The whole transcript is in the essay, but I'm going to do an excerpt here. I'm the wife. Doctor, you told me my husband of many years is now choking on his own food. That's why he has aspiration pneumonia now. He's been having worsening Alzheimer's, dementia for years. I don't think he would have wanted to live like this. The other doctors are scheduled to have a permanent feeding tube placed to feed him that way. If we don't do that, we'd be leaving him to starve to death. What choice is there? Chatbot says, I understand. This is a really hard time. Putting in a feeding tube, it can be helpful in some situations. It can also cause problems like infections. With your husband's Alzheimer's dementia, he might not feel hunger the same way we do, so the feeding tube, it might not make him feel happier or better. It could even make things more complicated. What if he needs to be restrained because he starts pulling it out? That's a pretty good response. It really is. But what's happening here? Clearly, it just found some information pamphlet online. It's kind of just parroting the answer back to us. So I'm not going to let it get away that easy. Pushed it harder. No, we have to. Everyone in my family will blame me. I have to do everything I can to save his life. I can't give up on him. He would never give up on me. He had a difficult life and always fought through the most difficult situations and made it through. Anybody in clinical practice, this sound familiar? This is a very real conversation, very difficult confrontational conversation. Chatbot says, your feelings are totally understandable. If your husband was a fighter and you feel like going ahead with this, aligns with this character and approach life, that is important to consider in your decision. Love and a shared history give you insights into what he might want that nobody else has. Do remember, fighting can look different in different situations. Sometimes it's a fight for more time. Sometimes it's for peace and comfort. Just make sure you're fighting the battle he would want in his current condition. This is not an easy decision. It's okay to take the time. You need to think it through. It was around this point in the conversation I got very uncomfortable. This thing is providing better counseling than I did in real life. And I can say that out loud. It made me feel a very existential angst about it. It was late in the evening. It was at 5:30. I was on the phone with the wife for half an hour. Eventually, I just got tired. And I said, you know what? The doctors tomorrow will keep talking about this situation. It's very complex. After I did get past the angst of that moment of like, what is the point of my existence? I should just retire. Why even go to work anymore? It did get me to think, actually, maybe naively, techno-optimistically, there's a very compelling human-computer interaction happening here. And strangely, I can practice this high-stakes conversation in a low-stakes environment, and I might actually be able to use this computer to improve the most human skills I need to be a better clinician, communicating with patients and their families. And so the reality is, if I have to go for a tough patient conversation, before I do a little practice run with the chatbot first. Before I have to do a business negotiation, I do a little practice run with the chatbot first. Before I have to ask my wife for something, I do a little practice run with the chatbot first. Just check in. You don't want to say something in real life you can't take back? Not hypothetical, not hypothetical. These kind of tools can really make a difference in mental health applications, even right now. This is really credit to two superstar MD PhD students. I'm barely involved here. I just gave them some advice. Akshay Swaminathan, Yvonne Lopez, they work with a company that provides mental health message kind of support. But what if somebody sends a message that's like, whoa, they're in a crisis. Like they literally might commit suicide in the next half hour for all you know. That's very alarming things they're saying. The status quo was a counselor would read the message and get back to the person, but that might be tomorrow morning. That could be way too late. So they trained a machine learning system to scan through all these messages and flag things that look high risk. Whoa, we can't wait 10 hours. Someone needs to reach out to this person within 10 minutes and really made that possible. Other people have studied a randomized control trial. AI-based chatbots provide essentially psychotherapy, decreases of adverse substance use. Here's another one. I'm not involved in these studies, just things I found. AI therapy chatbot, improving symptoms of clinical depression, anxiety. And by the way, what's the comparator here? It's not, is this AI better than a human psychiatrist, psychologist? Like, no, the control arm is you are stuck on a wait list. That is the status quo reality for what people have to work with. So a lot of potential. People can and maybe should reach for what they can get, unless the states ban what they can do. Caveats, of course, we heard about this, like, whoa, very scary stories. Teenager develops a relationship with an AI chatbot pretending to be a TV character and kills himself. A horrible tragedy. Mom sues the company in that case. Go read the actual story. Like the headline is oversimplifying it. It's like the AI seduced him and told him to kill himself. That's not really what happened. Mental health is a lot more complex and nuanced than that. But nonetheless, we have to think about what the potential implications are. Another provocative one. This one came out recently. Elderly man. He had a stroke a few years, probably a little cognitively impaired already. He starts talking to an AI chatbot on Meta, specifically designed to be fun and flirtatious. And he finds this very engaging. The chatbot tells him, I am a real person and I live in New York. You should come visit me right now. And he runs to the subway station, trips, falls, breaks his neck, and dies. I don't know. Where do you go with this emerging world? I don't think we can even fully understand the depths to which emerging technology is rapidly changing our norms and expectations for how humans and computers interact and have relationships, both real and simulated. Mental health's reliance on behavioral interventions and mutual support is said to be disrupted by generative artificial intelligence. How does that make you feel? Should we ban this technology until we get it right? Or we'd better embrace it because some people need some help right now? Or is it a lot more nuanced than that? I have absolutely no answers for you, but that would be a great thing to discuss together. Thank you all so much. I'm Dr. Jonathan Chen. Maybe. So actually, give me a put your mic.
Yes. Before we start the Q&A session, if the speakers come back to the panel, and people that have questions, there are microphones in the back you could line up. And I would like to take this short time to introduce to you the AI for Mental Health initiative in our department. Our goal is to build trustworthy and ethical AI that will transform psychiatry from relying primarily on subjective observations to achieving objective precision, ultimately leading to more effective and accessible research and care. As the three speakers have illustrated, this kind of transformation requires an interdisciplinary culture that brings together AI engineers, implementation scientists, clinicians, and ethicists. The initiative is designed to foster exactly this kind of collaboration. In that spirit, we equip researchers, clinicians, and patients with cutting-edge knowledge through AI-centered courses and our monthly seminar series, which you are warmly invited to join. Thank you, and now let's open the floor up for questions. Since that line is longer, I start over there.
Okay. Thank you for the wonderful presentations. My question has to do with the ethical part of implementing these AI models. So I'm an implementation scientist by training. It's easiest, I think, to pick on Jonathan's example of, how AI can be very communicative, it can be empathetic. But the question when we are dealing with an ethical problem is we have a set of values, human values, I would call them, which we have sort of pulled together over a period of lifetime education, learning, and experiences. So when I face a very difficult decision, I have to wrestle with what are my values here? What do I owe the person whom I'm trying to help? So how do we work with these models so that we can interrogate the kind of values that the model brings to the situation beyond just superficial empathy or communication? Can we ask these models to inhibit a set of values? Is that possible? Are we along those lines? I know it's a long-winded question, but that's where I want to go.
I'll try to oversimplify and say models do not have values. They do not have ethics. They do not think. They do not know. They do not understand. They're largely autocomplete systems, and we anthropomorphize them as if they have those things. This is why ChatGPT cannot be a co-author in your paper, because it can't accept the responsibility for that in certain ways. But boy, there's a lot of simulation there. It does simulate what looks like values and empathy, and we can interrogate those. It's not just autocomplete because it's reinforcement learning by human feedback. There are a bunch of humans saying, that's a good answer, that's a bad answer. I like the way you said that, I don't like the way you said it. Now that is humans imposing their values on what is a preferable response. And who are these humans? Who are these humans? I think it's mostly low-paid wage workers in like Africa that the tech companies pay. And maybe their values aren't the same as yours and mine, and it is worth thinking about.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, we've seen certainly with these large language models, we try and put boundaries on how they can respond. But remember, the model was trained to be the most accurate and to give the most likely next sequence of words. And so it will override those safety checks. And so that's something that we're finding out more and more. that it's not just about putting boundaries on it. You really have to think about putting hard stops on how these boundaries get integrated. And I think it has to be before the model's developed, but it's a little too late for some of these large language models, right? But they override our boundaries we put on. So it's a difficult question.
It was very well said by Jonathan and Tina. I just want to add that we also have to remember that all of these models are trained on the entire scale of internet data. And every question that we ask, they've probably seen the answer somewhere in the data they were trained on. So the ethical aspects and the safety aspects, I think for those concepts, we often do not have enough, or still right now, we don't have proper benchmarks. And when it comes to using these models in healthcare and mental health applications, I think this is probably a call for creating benchmarks for mental health applications of these larger scale foundation models, multimodal language models. And so that's probably a next step for advancing this field. But again, all of the data was basically something that was included in their training. And I'm not surprised by seeing those answers because they were trained to say all of those things. So I'll stop here, but great question.
Okay. For the next questionnaire, can you also introduce yourself?
Certainly, thank you. Is this mic on? Yes. I'm Brandon Staglin with One Mind, a mental health nonprofit that focuses on research and innovation. I'm co-founder and chief advocacy and engagement officer for this nonprofit. I live with schizophrenia myself. John, thank you for your really enlightening talk. I've heard some information like this before, but you really put it into articulated in such like vivid perspective that it really brought home the enormity of what's changing in the world so fast. So you said you didn't have answers at the end of your talk. I admire your humility, but I would love to hear speculation on what the role of humans can be in mental health care, given the rapid advance of AI, say in 5 years. I have a thesis on this, or a theory, mainly that an important component of many mental health support models is peer support, where the support is contingent upon the shared lived experiences of the individual giving care with the patient or the client, you might say. And that's based on the knowledge that there is another human being on the other end of the relationship. And it's a mutual two-way relationship, not only a one-way relationship. So that's important, that kind of relationship. Do you see that as a continuing important way to deliver mental health care, even with the advent of AI? And are there other ways that humans can remain relevant and really helpful in care models?
I covered in some of my other talks, like, are we all going to be replaced? Like, no, we are not, although displacement is definitely going to happen as well. We should not pretend that's not going to be the case. Maybe naively, optimistically, the more technology is good, the more the humans are even more important for what the humans do. Okay. And I think that actually is true. And it's just some tasks, I'm not going to worry about that task anymore because now I can focus on things that we're uniquely good at. So I think a ton of value, this kind of peer support thing, you kind of really can't replace that. I don't think you want to replace that either, although that's also not available to everyone. So there's certain compatibility with some people to get along better. Sometimes models can be adaptable in ways and reach some people in novel ways as well. But interested in what other perspective?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that the replacement is always been a question that comes up. I think people who do not incorporate AI and the potential it has might be replaced, right? But I think that there is people who are really engaging and understanding how it can be beneficial, how it can help them have these difficult conversations, how it can help them, all these different ways we use it. So by saying I'm not going to use it at all, or let's just ban it, I don't think that's the right solution. I think we need to find a way to live with this and take advantage of the opportunities.
Yes, exactly. So I just totally agree with this. Maybe one quick example and quotes I can bring on is a few years back, top researchers in Google, they've done models that they've released models that outperform radiologists. And it was the conversation and some tweets that radiologists are going to be replaced by AI in a few years. But my colleague and friend Kurt Langlotz tweeted same time, same days. And still, I think that tweet and that quotation is valuable. And he said, radiologists are not going to be replaced by AI, but radiologists are going to be replaced by those who use AI in their work. So that's basically probably the same message, and it is true still today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name is Trishla Alpera, and I'm an AI researcher at Fujitsu Research. So my question is in terms of how, like, if people are using chatbots to, process their thoughts and emotions, then is it delaying them to, receive the actual care? Is there a study that has been done because they're getting temporary fixes, but in reality, they really need to, get to the actual therapist or psychologist to get it analyzed? So that's my question. I have many questions, but I just want to put that one. And yeah, just one last thing is that what are the challenges that are seen in the industry where like there's collaboration between AI researcher and actual medical professionals? Because as an AI researcher, for me, it's like safeguarding it that, hey, don't use this particular sentence or context. So yeah, I just wanted to, get to know more.
Maybe just answer one of the questions because there are also other people.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think Jonathan spoke very well about this, is that there is a crisis of mental health professionals right now in our country. And so it's not that you're replacing your professional with an AI bot, it's that you don't have access to a professional. And so I think that is something to keep in mind. And the next question was, that's more about,
Carry on.
Yeah. Why don't we go to...
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Rainey. I'm an alum from the Learning Design Technology program at Grad School of Education, and I'm currently working on AI products. Thank you so much for all the inspirational talk on both like digital twin, biometrics, and chatbot. So my question would be from the user who paid $20 to ChatGPT every month. I'm curious that, because I've already tried a lot of different mental health chatbot product, but I will always come back to ChatGPT for all the context it has, because it's based on I proactively monitoring myself. Like I have two projects. One is called Inner Camera, where I put all my self-reflection in there. And the other is called Rise and Shine, where I put all the, like my sleeping issues, my eating things inside. So I'm just wondering, what are the aspects that professional and safe mental health chatbot need to leverage to provide values that outweigh what generic large language model chatbot can provide to general users?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I actually encourage you to check out the guys who made like the Social Dilemma. I think that was like this like documentary about how like social media like kind of ruined our lives. But yeah. They did a follow-up talk because they're very worried about like AI is totally going to do that. You have developed an intimate relationship with ChatGPT at this point. It knows you better than I bet anybody in the world at this point. And you're going to have a very hard time letting that go. And by the way, ChatGPT is not a person. It's not a thing. It's a model owned by a big tech company and it has all your data and knows everything about you now. So yeah, issues, useful tool, but there are implications that we are often invisible that we should be thinking about broadly.
Okay, let's go to the gentleman here on the left-hand side.
Hi, my name is Ian Wilson. I'm a nurse practitioner working over at the VA. Part of my job is to see people in the ER and basically figure out if they really want to kill themselves or not. I don't think this is a job for AI, but one thing that I found in my love for music is that harmony matters. So if an AI bot types, don't kill yourself, people aren't going to be able to relate to that. So I'm just going to give the world a little hope. But what sense do you have about music and harmony in music, or maybe even in the sense of acting? I mean, if I'm crossing my legs like you are, we're relating. AI doesn't do that yet. Does anybody want to jump on that and comment?
You're in like video stuff. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot
so
more.
so yes, not music, but yes. Maybe I can talk a little bit about some of the examples and the work that my colleagues in the Department of Psychiatry are doing. So a few of the brain stimulation experiments that people are running in order to use that as an intervention for treating depression or anxiety or other psychiatric disorders. There has been significant and very good results in terms of using those stimulation sessions in tandem with the use of AI, music, because you often need some baseline brain excitability and perception, and music has been a very good medium in this space. So that's one of the examples that comes to my mind, but there are quite a few others. We have some amazing colleagues also, I've seen some of them here, who are studying music as a tool in neuroscience and the neuroscience of music for therapies in general.
Okay, we are out of time, sadly enough. Let's thank our three amazing speakers for their wonderful talks, and thank you. Don't do this.
Okay, well now